Welcome to the Nation Diplomatic Dispatch, your window into the world of diplomacy and international affairs. I'm PASHA RAHIM. In today's episode, we turn the spotlight on ASEAN, business without borders, a region that's rich with opportunity but also complex challenges in connectivity, trade and cooperation. Joining me is Tan Sri Tony Fernandes, Group CEO of Capital A trailblazer who has redefined air travel and championed regional integration. What will it take to unlock ASEAN's full business potential? Stay with us until the end of the show. Thanks for joining us today, Tan Sri.
Nice to be here, Pasha.
Right, let's talk about the recently concluded Kuala Lumpur summit. Let's try and analyze some of the summit's key announcements. Now, the ASEAN Digital Economy Framework Agreement has been or is getting a lot of attention, especially from smaller businesses that are trying to scale up across borders. How do you see this changing the game across SMEs in the region?
Yeah, I think not just SMEs, but obviously SMEs is the engine of ASEAN's economy.
Right.
And so they're the biggest beneficiary, and if they benefit, then ASEAN benefits as a whole. But really, it's multifaceted as into this digital framework. But let's talk about trade, for instance. If I just returned recently from Brunei, where we met the ASEAN Secretary Generals of Customs.
Right.
Trade now is still conducted with a lot of paper and a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of inconsistency in moving goods across the borders. If there was a ASEAN digital trading system, that's going to enable many more people to come in and find it easier to trade within ASEAN. And as our company Teleport is now discovering, ASEAN has so many rules amongst each other,
Right.
That it's not easy. And so the digital framework provides breaking down these invisible barriers. And obviously, ASEAN can see a huge benefit from e-commerce growth.
Right.
And not just the big Shopees and Lazadas from outside, but we have a lot of SMEs that are using e-commerce to sell their goods and now try to expand outside of their own home market. So I'm very encouraged that it's there. I want to be real that there's still a lot of work to be done in really harmonizing digital systems. We're beginning to see also reality being positive in the QR code system. We now can, if you have a big pay card or touch and go,
Right.
you can use the QR code system across ASEAN borders. In Malaysia, PayNet, in Singapore, PayLah, I think it's called,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So that enables for the first time ASEAN to have a payment system, a digital payment system that's not Visa or MasterCard.
Right.
And so all of these things are moving in the right direction. Of course, as a businessman, and that's who I represent,
Right.
the ASEAN Business Council, we would love it faster, but it is happening. So it's multifaceted. I've talked to you about two things, payment and trade, but it's about simplifying business all over ASEAN.
Right. It sounds great, when we're talking about integrating financial systems, right? Right now, I think we are able to use QR codes between nations within the ASEAN. But practically, sometimes it does get a little bit more complicated than that. Where do you see are the biggest gains, and also what are some of the biggest risks for businesses?
I don't think there is any risk. I'm a free marketeer. Some will win, some will lose. Where they're protected markets, companies that have been protected and suddenly open to competition, they won't like it.
Right.
But history has shown, and you only have to look at the European Union, even NAFTA, even though there are issues now with Donald Trump, or Mercosur in South America, or even the African Union. The free trade always benefits every country and the people of those countries. So I only see upside through breaking down these barriers. The easy wins I've mentioned the biggest one is trade, is making it easier to trade, making it consistent, so that, and some countries will always have some different rules.
Yeah.
We have an issue of pet food, and Malaysia is one of the biggest producers of pet food, and there's a couple of companies that are growing. But when they go to Singapore, there are 7 different rules and 7 different. If that's all digitized and they know prior, then everything gets much easier to start importing and exporting, right? So trade is a big beneficiary. Financial systems are a big beneficiary of moving goods throughout these. AirAsia is a beneficiary of something that has worked, which is open skies.
Right.
You know, I think AirAsia with other airlines have really created an ASEAN travel market, which never existed. More Thais are going to Philippines, more Indonesians are coming to Malaysia, more Malaysians are going to Vietnam. This was all provided through a free trade in flights. That's the best way of describing it, which we refer to in the airline business as open skies. And inter-ASEAN travel has grown leaps and bounds from when we first started.
Right. Talking about intra-ASEAN travel, we are also looking at strengthening supply chains and also boosting intra-ASEAN trade. Now, the role of aviation and mobility in this entire economic integration is very, very important. And you know, connectivity, like you said, it's not just digital. It also requires people
physical,
moving in and out. So, you know, being from the aviation sector, particularly low-cost carriers like AirAsia, how do you see your role supporting, you know, this deeper regional integration and also unlocking access for markets that are underserved?
Yeah, so I mean, we are a big unlocker, to be absolutely honest, along with other low-cost carriers,
right.
and of course my brothers in the full-service industry. Firstly, I think ASEAN shouldn't just look at aviation. I think it's great that railway is coming through, you know, and of course shipping and trucking. These are the 4 modes of moving goods, aviation being the fastest, but probably the most expensive. And in terms of e-commerce, I think we're a big mover of goods. So I think we really saw the potential during COVID, and we created a new company called Teleport. And of course, because we have such a deep network, you don't have to go through hubs. So making logistics cheaper, making logistics faster is a big boon. So yeah, we take it very seriously by creating a new company. I think the whole trade ecosystem is going to really grow. And we're part of it, and we really saw that after COVID. And I think with the geopolitics happening, I've been a big supporter of ASEAN for a long time, and I've said, we have 700 million people. If we can put our differences down, look at what we created in travel. Because the travel wasn't seen as sensitive, right? Right. Other things everyone's a bit more protective on. But here's a success. Imagine if we can replicate that everywhere. So if I can take aviation a couple of steps further, when we fly in ASEAN, we're dealing with 10 aviation authorities. Right? In Europe, you've got 1, EASA. Air traffic controllers, 10 different air traffic controllers with 10 different methods. I want to also, when you talk about digital framework and bringing down barriers and trade, what about mobility of people? Right? Does every engineer in Malaysia have to come from Malaysia? If we want to be global, we'll have to import some talent. Pilots, we have different pilots licenses, you know. I think mobility of workforce. Now I know that's going to take a long time. But I encourage ASEAN to start with mobility of young people. And I think America and Europe did a very good job. You know, when you're not as old as me, obviously, but we used to go in the Eurorail. You know, we travel around Europe, we begin to understand it. If students now, and I would love universities to start more exchange students and for people to understand Thailand, because these students become business leaders. And if they had good memories in Thailand, good memories in Malaysia, they'll build connections, and that's how you build relationships. Whatever AI does, people connections are still the most important thing. So I would encourage ASEAN, while it will take a while to bring down these immigration dudes to allow everyone to move freely, let's focus on the youth to be able to intern, to be able to go to universities, and to be able to travel easily. So we're looking at really talent mobility across the ASEAN region for us to be able to share our expertise. Moving on, let's talk about economic integration. I think we spoke about this. Can I just add to that talent mobility? Sure. You know, while it's in the news non-stop, why is America what America is? Because they get the best talent, right? I mean, I don't understand the logic of Donald Trump right now, but he gets the best talent from Malaysia, from Indonesia, from China, and most of them stay
Right.
in America. You only have to look at the top CEOs, a lot of Indians, a lot of Lithuanians, etc. So ASEAN should bring down these barriers and allow talent mobility and even allow import of talent.
Right.
And I think that's only going to be a beneficiary, and universities play a big part.
But I think we're also then looking at bringing home our ASEAN talent back into ASEAN,
Yeah,
so
correct.
that they can contribute back
Correct.
to the ASEAN community. Okay, so moving on to economic integration. We're talking about opportunities and also challenges, right? So ASEAN wants to be the fourth largest economy by 2045. That's not very far off. What sectors do you think are going to be the biggest drivers of reaching this growth, and who is best positioned to take advantage of this?
Well, I think all the countries have. If you look at the beauty of ASEAN, if you think, and talking about digital framework, one more thing, the power grid. Some countries have excess of power. Some countries need more power.
Right.
And if we had an ASEAN power grid, that would be great. So I think all countries will benefit in their own ways. You know, some have better ports, some have better tourism products, some have more power. But if we put all those strengths in and we don't have to replicate everything and we share everything, really we have a big, big plus. Energy, I believe, is a big beneficiary. If you look at what's happening now in the AI world, many data centers are being set up in Malaysia because we have abundance of energy.
Right.
And so I think ASEAN, you know, people worry about AI taking over and ASEAN not having a seat at the table. It doesn't matter. We didn't have a seat at the table on data science, but we used it to be better. You know, we used the internet. AirAsia used the internet to create a low-cost product. So we can use AI to create industries and leapfrog other countries through that. Obviously, agriculture plays a big part. I think we export a lot. Tourism is up there. And, you know, I think the technology we can leapfrog, and I think AI and data services, I think ASEAN could be a big beneficiary of that if we work together.
We're talking a lot about digital transformation and that being central to this vision, and it's happening very fast in some countries within ASEAN. But in a lot of other countries, or in much of Asia, in much of ASEAN, you know, the informal economies, you know, it still operates largely. How do we make sure that we don't leave behind, we don't have gaps in the economy when it comes to informal economies, and when we're talking about states that have better infrastructure than the others?
You know, I think it's never going to be 100% equal. If you look at Europe, there are richer countries and there are poorer countries, right? But generally everyone lifts each other up. I think we'd be dreamy if we say every country is going to be the same as Singapore. That's not going to happen for a variety of reasons, right? But it doesn't matter. So I think, and then you've got about the informal economy. You only have to look at what's happening in India with digital systems, or Africa with M-Pesa. The informal economy catches up very quickly if there's benefits, right? So I don't think anyone will be left behind. I don't think the digital world will leave anyone behind. Look at mobile phones. The penetration of mobile phones in every country in ASEAN is very large, and more commerce is being done on the mobile phone. So, you know, you take away the need for a payment till, right? You take away the need for those credit card machines. You can translate it all on your mobile phone. So I think digital, just like AirAsia, how did we catch up with the big airlines? We were small with 2 planes. We went straight into the internet. We went straight into Facebook, right? So I have no fears that the informal economy will be left behind.
Right. Let's talk about cross-border businesses. Now, those still have barriers, although, you know, we're trying to break down those barriers. But there's also the issue of non-tariff measures. Why is it so hard to dismantle some of these NTBs? And what do you think is needed to push through this resistance?
Willpower and strong leadership. That's the only way. Vested interests, be it here, be it America, be it anywhere, is a very powerful lobby. Vested interests create these non-tariff barriers. You only have to look, I mean, Donald Trump does have some justification in some of what he's saying, right? When he says, I can't sell American beef in Korea and Japan. They come up with all these, oh, the cow has to be this way, you can't inject this hormone. And that's the same in Europe, right? So he does have a grouse there while they import all their meat over, etc. So, but who's the lobby? The farm lobbies in Europe and Japan and Korea. Very powerful lobbies, right? You can't get Uber in Korea because the taxi lobby is so strong, right? So you have to have strong leadership that says this is better for the people. So let's think about it. Did the national carriers want other airlines in their market? Probably not. It took strong leadership to say, let's allow Lion Air, let's allow AirAsia, let's allow Cebu Pacific. The people benefited, right? Love us or hate us, and everyone will have an opinion of AirAsia. We've carried 1 billion people. We've won the world's best low-cost airline 17 times or 16 times in a row, hopefully. In the next few weeks.
You're already counting your wins.
Yeah, I'm counting my chicken. I said hopefully, and quietly optimistic. But we've definitely opened up the market for travel, right? So, but that took vision of someone to say, we need more than one airline. We need more than one mobile phone company.
Right.
So you've opened it up in your own market, and then secondly, someone said, okay, we've allowed Emirates to come in, and they can pick up passengers and go to Australia. Right, which was just MAS or Qantas going to Singapore.
Right.
So it's strong leadership that opens up the market, and history has always shown opening up the market. Right. So, the Americans are complaining about APs. Is that a non-tariff barrier? Would Malaysians get cheaper cars? I don't know. I don't have the economics of that, but. These are something that the leaders will have to say that it isn't a zero-sum game. Some will lose, some will win. Sure. But overall, history has shown everyone wins.
Yeah, but basically what we're saying is, dismantling monopoly is the way to go for progress and for the economy to grow. And so we need to do away with protectionism. Is that what you're saying as well?
I'm basically saying that, right? I mean, so I think individual countries in ASEAN have dismantled most of the monopolies, most of them, not all. And the people have benefited. Now you've got to say, well, I want to remove the cross-border protection. That's harder. Yeah. That takes a lot of political will. And so that's out of my control. But I think ASEAN is certainly talking the right game. Now is the time when you have all these global trade problems and people, if we can create our own travel market, and we travel our own economic market, then we depend less on Europe or America, etc. Right. So, I'm most optimistic, and I felt the best at the KL summit because I saw ASEAN leaders very tight. Right. I saw determination, and I think in some ways Donald Trump has pushed ASEAN into more action.
I mean, definitely, ASEAN being a strong bloc on its own is the way to go. Now, let's look at ASEAN's global positioning, right? How do we balance regional unity and also international relations? Especially with global trade tensions rising again, there is a pressing need for a more ASEAN, a more unified ASEAN stance. Now, how do we stay strong as a bloc? Regardless of our differences in views, and also at the same time protect our economic interests in what seems like a largely fragmented world.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't profess to own all the answers. You only have to look at Europe, right, where the UK pulled out. Various countries say they shouldn't be in Europe. But you can also see the UK have realized that it was a mistake to pull out and are now trying to have an agreement. NAFTA is a success, right? Whatever is said, some countries will, really, does America want to manufacture Barbie dolls? While on one side they're building these great AI farms, right? Do they really want to manufacture Barbie dolls, right? So there is, trade is good, and some countries will do some things better than others. So it is, to me, ASEAN is still young, to be fair, right? European community came out of World War II. And I think the leaders at that time felt a European Union would stop any future world wars. They had 2 world wars out of Europe. ASEAN had, a fragmented political situation, lots of battles in between. And so it was a political union at first, and now it's evolving into an economic union. And I still feel economics drives political harmony as well, the more integration there is in the economy.
Right.
And I think ASEAN is stepping out a little bit. You know, I think they're pushing Myanmar to solve its problems, and are taking a united stand on the China South Sea.
Right.
So ASEAN is moving now to a stronger unity. I really feel the leaders get on together and pushing the economic agenda.
Right.
I think the economic agenda took a back seat, but now it's taking a front seat. So I'm optimistic.
Speaking of, we're expecting Timor-Leste to join the ASEAN bloc
It has joined, I think,
in October. Officially, they will be joining in October. What can we do? What can ASEAN do as a bloc to help get Timor-Leste up to speed with the rest of the member nations? Yeah,
I'm not an expert on that, to be honest, and I think that's. But I mean, by being part of the bloc, you remove tariffs. I think Timor-Leste is very far behind, but has a lot of resources.
Yeah.
So potentially the investment will go in there. But they have a seat at the table, which I think is...
And that's a good first step for them.
That's a great step. As to how ASEAN can help, I'm not 100% sure on that. I don't know. It's the answer.
Okay. It's a very
But I mean, I went to Timor-Leste, and it needs a lot of investment.
Right. Are we seeing flights?
Well, for us, we're about to probably launch it from Bali. We can't do it from Kuala Lumpur because the runway is too short.
Right.
So we need a heavier plane, and it isn't long enough. So again, these things will happen. I'm sure if you think of Cambodia many years ago, it was a Malaysian who built the first airport, Muhiba. And so, there'll be some ASEAN entrepreneur who will say, I'll go build an airport in Timor-Leste, and others will say, I'll build hotels.
Right.
And that's how it starts.
Of course, and that's definitely how it opens up doors.
So, and if you go to Cambodia right now, most of the banks were Malaysian. There's Public Bank, there's Maybank. I was like, hey, am I in KL? So I do begin to see that ASEAN, when there's a new ASEAN country and there is given some preference, and our chairman, Nazir Razak, has been pushing for the ASEAN business enterprise, that companies who are considered ABE will get some advantages.
Right.
So that people will put more, ASEAN companies will invest more in ASEAN than going outside.
Right. Fast forward 10 years from now, what do you think success would look like for ASEAN on the global stage, and how do you think business leaders like yourself would help shape that future? Well,
I think what I'd love to see just before that is a stronger ASEAN Secretariat,
right,
that has more resources to put more ASEAN strategy together. I hope we really have an ASEAN with not just tariff barriers removed, but non-tariff barriers removed, right? I hope equity considerations, ownership considerations, that ASEAN is considered one. So if I want to own an airline in Indonesia, I can own it 100%. If an Indonesian wants to own an airline in Malaysia, they could own it 100%. Right? That ASEAN is seen as one market, right? One market. I would love a situation, when you talk about the digital economy, that's all great, and that's all going to move, but I'd love one regulation. If you come to ASEAN, you have one regulation and you can do businesses in 10 markets. Right now, we still have 10 regulations in each market. So that'd be enough. If we can get there, that'd be great. I'd love to see more ASEAN cultural events. We have the Eurovision. I'd love to see an ASEAN music competition. I'd love to see more ASEAN dramas,
Right.
Why don't we have more Thai dramas here and Malaysian dramas? Then we have a bigger market.
Yeah, I think we do have some sort of a collaboration when it comes to film with Thailand, but yeah. Yeah,
the Koreans have done a great job with their culture. I'd love to see more ASEAN leagues. I'd love an ASEAN football league, where you have JDT against Surabaya, against, Buriram in Thailand. I think that would really excite the football world. And so not just business. You've focused a lot on business, and obviously we know politics. I hope ASEAN in 10 years will develop into more cultural and music. And finally, I keep going on to that. I think the future of ASEAN lead is in the youth, and I would love to see more cross-pollination of students within ASEAN universities. So we all gravitate to the UK and US.
Right.
Why not more ASEAN people go to Chulalongkorn University in Thailand or in Indonesia, and more Indonesians come to University of Malaya? It's happening a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd love to see more of it.
Right, like we used to have the Look East policy, we should have a Look into ASEAN policy
correct.
moving forward.
And better mobility of workforce and students.
Right. Well, it does look like we have a very bright future ahead for ASEAN. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have on today's episode. A big thank you to Tan Sri Tony Fernandes, the Group CEO of Capital A, for sharing his insights on building a truly borderless ASEAN business landscape. Join us again on the Nation Diplomatic Dispatch as we continue to bring you conversations that shape diplomacy, trade, and international affairs. I'm PASHA RAHIM. Thanks for listening. Until next time, take care.